The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone. We'll give people a few more minutes to jump on. The roundtable will begin in just a few minutes. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our second consultant roundtable. We're just giving people a few minutes to join, probably lined up with back-to-back meetings like we always are. And we will just ease into our agenda for today and begin the process of talking about our consultant roundtable. So my name's Clark Haskins. I'm a member of the North America Center of Excellence. And today we bring to you a varied agenda. Topic number one on the agenda is the North American Report Pack and SEI Report Pack. Jason King from our team will be discussing that with you. We'll be talking about license plates today. We'll have a survey for you on future topics. We'll discuss what's new, review some Sage University information. As well, we will talk about our next roundtable. First topic on the agenda is the North America Report Pack, SEI Report Pack. And Jason, I'll let you take over.
Yeah, thanks, Clark. My name is Jason King from the North America Center of Excellence, as Clark just introduced. And I'm going to just spend some time reviewing what's included in this new offering, the North America and SEI report packs. These are report packs offered by the North America Center of Excellence, and they're targeted at the North American market. They were just released. And the report pack, the first one includes CRISTA reports and inquiries. And the SEI report pack, as its name implies, includes additional reports offered through SEI. These are either web-based reports or Microsoft Excel reports delivered using SEI. They're available upon request by contacting a member in the North America Center of Excellence. The report pack for Crystal was developed in Sage X3 2022 R3, and it's delivered by Patch an X3 patch, and also includes a user guide that outlines every report, a preview of it, and the changes that are included in the report. Next slide, Clark. The report pack includes cosmetic and functional improvements on existing reports. These are both financial and operating reports. It includes improvements to internal and external facing documents. And it also includes some new reports not previously offered. Commissions and sales rebate. I know there was a commission report. This isn't entirely, that report has been included as well, but in addition to that, there are new commission and sales rebate report that are tied around the sales price list functionality. It also includes new inquiries, some inquiries that were not previously delivered. Things like a standard cost template that allows you to see the latest standard cost versus the previous standard cost could be useful to gather information when performing cost calculations or doing an import. Pending transactions, those are like unposted transactions and kind of pending transactions like recurring entries, reversing entries that haven't been executed in a period, things like that. Kind of similar to what's in the Clopper report, but in an inquiry format. That information is also pulled through SEI, so it's kind of very helpful, I think, for month-end type reporting. Also included is stock and WIP not posted inquiries, just to give you kind of a feel. Yeah, and next slide, Clark. So the delivered reports include reports in the various domains of sales, stock, purchase, manufacturing, as well as financial reports, including accounts payable and accounts receivable. You can see a list of them here. This is from the user guide that accompanies the patch. The reports are typically prefixed with the letter XA just to denote that they are from the report pack. And then you see the original name of the report embedded in the report naming convention there. So these, like I said, these include operating and financial reports, as well as external facing and internal related reports. And to get a full detail of these, you can review the user guide that accompanies this. Next slide, Clark. The inquiries are also delivered. There are a handful of them as well, like I mentioned. Again, they're prefixed with XA, and they center around, as you can see, a chart of account inquiry to be able to extract that out to an inquiry or out to Excel if you like. Stock and WIP not posted, pending transactions, and a WIP cost summary. I'll detail a couple of these in just a moment. Next slide, Clark. Yeah, I've chosen this report. This is the North America, this is the BAL Age GRP report. It's an APAR Age Trial Balance report. Just to kind of illustrate some of the types of things that you could see in the report pack. So on the left is the original report, and on the right is the newly formatted report with some blue arrows there, just kind of indicating some of the areas where this particular report was changed. So you can see the reports typically they include cosmetic changes. So these are things like the alignment of text on the report. You know, you can see where it aligns to the margins a little differently in the report, the color. So some of the cosmetic elements have been changed on all the reports that are in this pack. and also some functional changes. And of course, that's going to differ by report. So in this particular one, you'll see, a couple to mention would be the inclusion of the business partner document onto the report. And also in the subtotal area for each customer, some additional information pulling from customer that could make it useful for contacting that customer using this report. Things like the primary sales rep of that customer, the email address of that customer, the credit limit, payment terms is another, just to mention a couple, okay? So that's just kind of a general feel for that report, but you can see in the user guide a detail of all the changes for every report. Next, Clark. This particular slide I chose because it illustrates some of the change on external facing documents. I've just chosen 3 of them. Of course, there are others, but generally you can see a new look and feel to the external facing reports, including logos and a cleaned up look, the logo coming from the company setup. And just to highlight some of the changes here, I chose the purchase order on the left, order acknowledgement in the middle, and the sales invoice on the right. I won't go through every change, but just to highlight maybe some of the changes that are documented in the user guide for the PO would be, for example, repositioning the wording of purchase order, adding the supplier header above the supplier block, removing the PO field from the supplier block and putting the receiving site up, and creating a new ship to block for it, putting product code and description on the same line, adding supplier product, changing some of the wording like net price to purchase price, changing wording from like a short form of amount to full amount, things like that. They're all detailed in the user guide that I mentioned. Next, Clark. So in this next one, what I'm highlighting here there are 2 reports that are included that are pre-formatted for Excel export. Now I realize that you can export any report to Excel, but these ones have been specifically adjusted. The original reports were GL-GRP, which is the GL account balance with journal entry detail, and the JOU-GRP report, which is the journal codes report. And so in here, typically what happens here is that these reports are specifically adjusted to align to the columns in Excel so that you don't have data kind of falling outside in different columns. It's all aligned. And the JOU-GRP report in particular, the subtotals have been suppressed. So it allows for faster data analysis if you plan to take that data and analyze it in Excel, for example. These reports are also available just as preview, and they have functional improvements as well. But the Excel version is specifically formatted for that fast output. Next, Clark. To give you a feel for the North America report pack inquiries, I chose a couple of slides here, stock and WIP not posted. So oftentimes, when I was in the field, always wanted to be able to get a view of those transactions that are in the stock journal table and the WIP cost table that haven't posted through. Typically, I would run this inquiry after running the stock interface or the WIP posting functions to see those transactions. Perhaps I was getting an error when posting the transaction as a journal entry. I would want to see that information, and so this gives some visibility there. Now these are, like I said, large tables. It is filtered to the unposted records, and it would be recommended that the interfaces be run first before using them. They're available throughout the month and at month end. The same information is brought to SEI because often at month end you want to be able to see those because that could be a reconciliation issue. okay, when you're tying out those two. Next, Clark. The WIP cost summary report is a very useful one that I've seen used in the field again. And this one takes the WIP cost inquiry function and puts it into an inquiry so that you get a two-dimensional array, meaning that the work orders are on the rows and the information from the totals tab is across the columns. So you get to see the labor, material, and overhead broken out between the actual, expected, and variance for each one of those across the columns. And the way I've seen it used is, for example, when you're doing daily costing, to be able to look at those work orders, from a macro level, to be able to see, where you have variances, and then kind of hone in on those particular work orders using the X3 WIP cost inquiry function, rather than going through that inquiry function one by one. Okay. This same information is brought through SCI as well. Next, Clark. Just a quick mention on the SCI report pack. These are additional reports that are provided. They're either web-based reports or they're Microsoft Excel delivered workbooks. They're all real-time reports. They're typically meant to be filtered. They include additional reports not previously included in the out-of-the-box offering. Data models around standard cost to be able to do standard cost comparison when you're making changes. That could be extremely useful to compare this cost calculation with the most recent one, for example, or to be able to compare across cost types like standard versus simulated cost. An inquiry dedicated to pulling out the goods received not invoiced information. Stock journal that could be useful in reconciliation. Typically it's filtered, it is a real-time view. Keep that in mind. And then several financial reports. These are, kind of geared to reconciliation, like at period end. So they could be like a WIP inquiry or WIP reconciliation, I should say. Inventory reconciliation. Period end type reports that show you unposted transactions. A little kind of audit type report that shows you transactions within stock journal or WIP cost that could be useful after running pilot, for example, to kind of get a good view. And a financial statement package, which includes cash flow statement, on top of the typical balance sheet and income statement trial balance type reports. So next slide, Clark. Just to finish things off, that's just a very quick preview there. There is a planned Knowledge Bite session on March 20th that's being offered through SageU if you're interested in more detail, but you could also reach out to one of us here at the North America Center of Excellence if you want more detail. Thanks, Clark.
Thanks, Jason. We have a couple questions. One is asking, will you provide contact information as to how to request the report packs?
Yes, I think we could do that in follow-up to this meeting today, right?
Right. Yeah, we can do that. Second question is me asking you to share with the team, the people are attending the roundtables, what was the origin? Where did this idea come from?
Oh, yeah. So I don't know if you've all heard of the X3 Start program offering, which is an offering where we have a pre-configured folder. And so included in that initiative was the desire to change some of the out-of-the-box reports to have a new updated look and feel, as well as some functional improvements there. So that was kind of the origin of these reports. And then they were brought to be their own patch.
Great, fantastic. Thank you, Jason.
Also, I think, like the reports, oftentimes you were making changes to these types of reports in folder after folder. Like the inquiries, for example, there, the stock and WIP not posted, the WIP cost inquiry, for example, were typically always being added to a folder to kind of see that information. Anything else, Clark?
Nope, that's it for now.
Any other questions? Okay, great.
Perfect. Great, thank you,
Yeah,
Jason.
so we can provide the contact information in the follow-up email.
Perfect, thank you. Next topic on the agenda is license plate numbers. We wanted to talk about license plate numbers at the roundtable because of the advancements in the mobile automation functionality and where it's come in the latest releases. Originally, when license plates numbers were launched, it wasn't fully developed within ADC, and there were functions that were necessary for license plate numbers that didn't exist natively in ADC. So now that mobile automation has been built, for those who don't know, mobile automation is the modern replacement of ADC. Now that that's has been fairly well developed, we wanted to circle back and discuss license plate numbers just in case it wasn't covered because it wasn't fully, if it wasn't available in ADC, there were limitations and maybe we didn't capture all of its functionality. So we'll begin with the what. What is license plating? Well, license plating is a method for grouping and managing inventory by a container. And when we're talking about a container, we're talking about a logistical unit, such as a pallet, a cart. It could be a bin, it could be a bag. And then each container is assigned a unique license plate number. So you see by the images that tag, if you've got a license plate number, and for the functionality to be provide that ease of use, it needs to be barcoded. So you've got that license plate number tag that has the license plate number on it. And that the key part about that container type, there's predefined container types as pallet, product carton, barrel, or big bag, but you can decide what they are. It might be a bin, it might be a box, it could be anything, and these are all set up via local menu. Now, a container itself can be configured to hold a single product or it can be multiple products. You can also define it to hold a single lot or multiple lots. So there is some restrictions and benefits in terms of what that license plate number can do and cannot do. Why? Well, what license plate gives you the ability of grouping multiple products on a single container. It provides improved product movement. One transaction, one stock change transaction can move the contents of the product, whether that be a single product or whether that be multiple products. It provides improved traceability. So you've got information shown on the stock transaction detail. You've got a detailed stock inquiry. That traceability also applies to the quality. So consider a manufacturing environment, food and beverage, where you've got long production runs and there's a potential quality issue partway through that production run. The use of license plate numbers would allow you to narrow down within that long run, within the output of that long run, where that potential issue would be, to therefore contain just that limited range of product designated by license plate numbers based on time. For example, we know that there was a problem with a product that was part of a batch that was run from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. We can look and see what our output was and which LPNs were produced during that time, and therefore provide a methodology of containing those specific LPNs and allowing the rest of the production to move forward through the process and not require that containment. LPN license plate numbers gives you that pallet number functionality. So in that example I just provided, each pallet of output would have its own number, and therefore now you have the ability to identify by pallet, by bin, by bag, whatever that may be. Another benefit of the license plate number is you can create your LPNs on the fly during receipt. Now, where in X3 can is our license plate numbers used? Well, you can manage LPNs in stock data. So it's a unique number across sites and products, and it's used in stock movements. The LPN stock transactions give you capability to assign products to an LPN. You can move an LPN from a location to another location. You can group products from several LPNs to a new or existing LPN and split LPN as well. For that grouping or splitting, imagine a discrete manufacturer where you've got numerous components arriving. Maybe you're building a power unit, for example, and as product arrive, you can actually group individual pieces on a single LPN. So you get a motor that comes in, it's on LPN number 1. To the other side, you've got your reservoir for that power unit, and you're able to bring those two LPNs together to a new LPN, or we could simply move the motor to the LPN that the reservoir is on. So it gives you that flexibility and provides kind of another staging area, but a staging area that is portable, meaning when it's time to move that a reservoir motor and any of those other big type components, they could be on one pallet, and we would simply perform a movement to take that pallet over to the specific work center where the work may be done. You can create LPNs during receipt. It gives the ability to create LPNs on the fly and print stock labels for those LPNs. You can product issue on LPN, so whether that be a delivery, a miscellaneous issue, material tracking, as well through the assembly and disassembly flow, the stock entry for the assembly or the stock line issues for the components used in that assembly, and likewise in reverse for the disassembly. As I mentioned, the manufacturing flow where LPNs can be generated or used for the work order receipt, as well as quote unquote consumed during material issues. LPN can be managed through mobile automation, and there are import-export templates available for your LPN imports at Go Live or during any other step where that's required. So as I said, there's a couple ways in which LPNs can be created, and we'll demo this a little further as we go. So manually, you can create an LPN individually and define the characteristics of that LPN. Such characteristics would be, is this LPN for a single product? Or is this a single lot? So think of food and beverage, where that LPN, you may want to restrict it to be only a single lot of product. You can also create a range of LPNs on the fly, or not on the fly, I'm sorry, a range of LPNs. So the functionality is you want to create multiple LPNs at the same time, and you want to define the characteristics of that LPN. The creation of LPN in this manner is for the instances where we're going to manually assign at receipt or at grouping or at movement, as we'll demonstrate in a few minutes. What's really exciting, what makes this a very powerful piece of functionality is you can create an LP on the fly. LPNs can be created at receipt. By receipt, of course, we're talking about PO receipts, miscellaneous receipts, we're talking about assemblies, we're talking about production tracking and production plan. And so again, this is driven by setup. And so on the product site record, we've got a couple areas that we define. Number 1, we're checking off that it's container managed. Number 2, we're defining what our default container is. And note that's default, so of course it can be changed. And number 3, we're defining the capacity. So in this particular example, we've got 2 separate unit of measures. We've got pound and bags, and we are indicating that a pound, 1 LPN would be assigned for every 500 pounds of product received on that specific receipt. So the LPNs would be assigned automatically and would increment every 500 units. Same functionality, we're talking the same product, and we could also receive in bags. Of course, the bags would, of course, be set up on a unit of measure as well, unit of measure function on the product. And in this case, we can get 6 bags onto a pallet. One of the things to note is that the container capacity defined at the product site level is only for creation, so creating LPNs on the fly. If I created a pallet number and that pallet had the 500 pounds as indicated, there's nothing in the system that would prevent me from adding, 10 more pounds, 100 more pounds, 1,000 more pounds. It isn't restriction in terms of future functionality of that pallet. That capacity is only to define the creation quantity of that pallet. Likewise, if I was in a receipt and one pallet came in, especially when we're talking food and beverage, and we're talking about pounds, nothing comes in exact quantities. So I could receive my 10 LPNs at 500 pounds each, and my 11th LPN was actually 510. I have the ability to manually make that change and make that 11th LPN 510 pounds. So that isn't a limiting factor. So what do we have in terms of LPN operations? So we've got the ability to assign a product to an LPN. We've got at license plate number operations, so the ability to group products from at least one LPN to a new or existing LPN. We've got the split, which is to move at least one product from an LPN to a new LPN or existing LPN. The split functionality through mobile automation, which was just added in the 2022 R4 release. And then we've got the ability to unlink or disassociate an LPN from a stock line. So that example I gave you when I'm building the power unit, maybe that reservoir actually wasn't what we wanted. So we wanted to move it from that project specific LPN and have it no longer associated to an LPN. Other functionality within LPN operations is stock changes by LPN. So that is the ability to perform a location change, where when we're performing a location change of an LPN, all products assigned to that LPN follow that location change. And likewise, with the capabilities there for a status change. So let's take a look. And Jason, can you just confirm that you're seeing my image?
I can confirm that, yes, Clark. There was a couple of questions. Would you like me to wait till the end of your presentation?
No, you can cover them now, please.
Okay, so it looks like one of them was on intersite transfers. Are there plans to make the LPN prevail at the destination, or will it continue to reassign an LPN at destination, or can it be parameter controlled?
So I've got the same question. As a matter of fact, I don't have that answer as of yet. I know on a couple of projects I've worked on, we've resolved that through customization, knowing, as of today, mobile automation doesn't provide that customization capability, but will in Q1, I believe, or in the very near term. So that's one we're following, and I hope to get you an answer soon. I hope we all have an answer on that soon.
Okay, thank you. And also, the next one was, I constantly have the feedback from customers that keep confusing the LPN concept with shipping package. Can you comment on that? I don't know that it's a question more than a statement, but.
Right, and so one of the ways that I've dealt with that. I actually had the same issue, is where possible, using different setups. So I would, define you're going to see I use for my LPNs, I use a palette for LPNs, and I would use a different term in shipping. So there is that differentiation. That's probably the best suggestion I have at the moment.
Okay, that's all the questions that I see right now related to LPNs, Clark.
Great, thank
Thanks.
you, Jason. So as I said, from a setup perspective, LPN are used with containers. It's a wee bit confusing at first, at least I found it so, in that these containers are set up are based on common data logistic tables. And it's actually the same function that's utilized in shipping containers. How we differentiate that when we're creating our container is we have this internal selection here. Once we determine once we identify this as internal, we therefore know that this can be used for LPN as opposed to a freight container used in logistics. The functionality is rather simple. We can define license plate sequencing number. If we're going to use license plate numbers on the fly, we need to define that sequence number, same way you define a lot number. And it's here where we can define whether it's single product or single lot. Now this is for all pallets, but if I created a pallet individually using the same container pal, I can select a specific pallet only to be single product or only to be single lots. So there is that functionality that exists either way, where your customer gets to define what that pallet is at the high level or at the individual pallet level. So from here, another key piece in terms of the setup that wasn't covered in the PowerPoint is we have to talk about a pallet number as it relates to our product category and on the receipts tab. So when we look at our management rules for our pallet, you'll notice, look at our receipt tab for management rules, you'll notice by default, our license plate numbers are set to optional. If we have, and we're looking at our receipt type transactions, so you see miscellaneous receipt, supplier receipt, order receipt, quality control, you'll note that it's grayed out. Our delivery return, loan delivery return, and stock return are options that are available for us to modify from optional to mandatory. The functionality difference between the two is if I have a product, part of this product category that's set to optional, that means I can manually assign a LPN to that product. If I want to use LPN creation on the fly at the time of receipt, it must be set to mandatory. So if you're attempting to set that up and it's not working, you're not getting that LPN creation, this is the first place for you to come check and ensure that the product category for that product is set to mandatory. So let's just go to the one I've created for a demo. And here it is, raw LN. Going back to my receipts tab, and you'll notice that all of my license plate numbers for my raw material LN product category are set, or all my movement types are set to mandatory. So let's take a look at the product site. So when I look at my aluminum rim and I go down to the management, I've got, in this case, I've got my container management set to yes. I've got my default container null and my container capacity set to null. In this case, for this product at this site, I'm able to utilize container management, but with this setup, I am not able to create LPNs on the fly at the time of receipt for this product. Whereas if I look at my food product, you'll notice in this case, container management is set to yes. My default container is set to pallet. And then my container capacity is set. I've got my 2 units of measure, pound and bag, and I'm defining the quantities of each. Notice the word default. So if I had multiple containers created, when I'm creating my receipt, I can change that value. If that wasn't set up, so in this case, I've got PAL. So if I receive this product in pounds or in bags, that creation on the LPN creation on the fly will follow these rules. If I changed at the time of creation my container to bag, and there's nothing set in terms of my container capacity rules, in that case, I am not going to see those LPNs created on the fly. Okay. So I've the path that I've navigated to is stock and license plate numbers. This function, it provides two functions. One, in this case, for this particular LPN number, I can see the content of it in this screen. Gives me that visibility. It's just a basic lookup. It also gives me the capability to create a single new LPN in this case. So let's go to NA012. I'm going to pick my pallet container that we looked at before. I can assign a location. So one of the pieces, functionalities of LPNs is LPNs can actually stay within a location. So an empty LPN can be stored in a specific location, or I could assign products, and at that point I assign products, I can put that into a location. Maybe that's my receiving location. So there's that functionality depending on the customer's requirements, at which point you wish to assign that location. Further, as I mentioned, from the management aspect, I can, for this single pallet, I can define whether it's single product or single lot, despite the fact that when we looked at the container pallet, it was defined to be neither single product nor single lot. So in this case, by clicking a button, I've created my new LPN, and you'll notice now that my contents are null. I've simply just created that function. I've also got the capabilities to, I'll navigate the long way this time. I can create a number of LPNs on the fly. So same idea. I'll use my site 12, my PAL container type. Notice it's set to active, single product, location. I can define a specific location again for all these to go, and this number gives me the capability of saying that I wish to create 20 different LPN numbers, and what it's going to do is follow the sequencing number for the next 20 that are created. I can generate a label here if that made sense for my application, and by simply clicking OK, gives me the log gives me the list of new LPNs created for that site. Notice those LPNs are in that site only because now we're talking about a physical container. If I create LPN ending in 56 that we see here, that LPN ending in 56 is only at that site. It can't coexist at another site, half a pallet here, half a pallet there, but it being a physical unit. I hope that makes sense and helps with the understanding. Okay.
Hey, Clark, you're at quarter two, and there are 2 questions. Would you like me to hold them off, or?
Yes, if you could, please.
Okay.
Thank you. License plate number assignment. So this is the individual way in which I can go ahead and assign products to an LPN. Simple as selecting my site. And so I've got the ability, the difference in the management mode is as simple as the ability to assign to a single or multiple gives me that capability of adding products. I'm simply doing data entry and adding my multiple products. Now, of course, when we talk about mobile automation, you'd be doing that with the scan gun, but this view, I find anyway, gives me a better understanding of the functionality, and then it easily translates to ADC or mobile automation. So it's just like any other stock change function where I would just select my stock unit, add it to my LPN, and of course I can change my quantity. So if there were originally 50 units in stock, I could only move 10 to this LPN, assign a specific quantity. Just jump out of there. The LPN plate number operations is simply the process where I can take so I've got my, I can define my destination. So I'm going to perform a grouping function. And one thing to note when we're using our scanning, our search functionality, sorry, you'll notice, so let me pick my type so we can be consistent here. The difference between in stock and free, a free LPN means there's no stock assigned to it at this point. So here I've selected my destination license plate number. I can define my location, and then I can go to my LPN selection and container type LPN, container selection. Let's see. Let's do that again. Oh, it's palette, right? So I've got 2 products that are on existing LPN 35, and now I can group those on LPN 39. So for example, maybe the actual pallet unit for LPN ending in 35 broke, and I wish to just move the products from one to the other. Perfect. So LPN operations gives me that ability. If I wanted to split, meaning let's break that off again, I would do the same steps with the split option selected. And if I wanted to remove one of those products from the LPN and not put it onto another LPN, I would use unlink. So the split is I'm moving it from one LPN to another. Unlinking is I'm taking it off an LPN and is not going on to another. Okay. So let's jump to our receipts. I'm going to demonstrate purchase receipts, but the functionality is basically the same in any other area, receive and miscellaneous receipt, or production receipts. So I've got 2 lines. So just do my first line. Notice that in this case, we are receiving in sea salt. We're receiving 1,001 pounds. I go through, magically, I select my create button. You'll notice from my label selection, all of my LPNs are created here. And the LPN creation is a true creation. It isn't utilizing those LPNs that were generated manually through LPN creation. They're creating the next ones in the sequence number. Once I have those LPNs created, I can use my change receipts functionality and actually vary the quantities. We know in food and beverage, oftentimes, if we're getting bags of product, for example, the quantity listed here isn't always that's even 500. We might have 498, we might have 502. We're able to modify this quantity as long as the total quantity on each line, keeping the total quantity less than, equal to what we see in the quantity line. So there's a case where in this case, we created those LPNs for the unit bags. And this example here now, pounds, and now we'll create that same LPNs for bags. I'm not limited in any way in terms of the capability of, I think I just changed that to the exact same number. I'm not limited to the quantity of the receipt doesn't impact the LPN creation on the fly. There's my labels generated. And then my change receipt functionality shows in this case that I've got my 66 bags on one LPN number. I go back and verify what my capacity is for those bags, and therefore creates that one LPN. So there's your basic overview. There's an expert class, isn't scheduled at the moment, that covers LPNs, does a much greater dive into that. Goes what I tried to preview in 20 minutes, it goes for 6 hours. So it provides a greater functionality that way. So keep your eye open for that on Sage U. It isn't currently available, but I expect to see it in the future. Jason, we'll go to questions.
Okay, yeah, sure. Looks like a couple popped in here. So one was if mixed lots on an LPN, both status A and Q, would the LPN be blocked from allocation to a sales order if the Q stock is blocked from allocating to sales orders?
So notice in that case, right, even though you have an LPN with 2 different products on it, you're going to have a separate stock line for each product, right? And the allocation, I'm 95% sure, but that allocation will be specific to that stock line, not specific to the LPN. And
Okay.
I'll actually test that, and if I'm wrong, I will get back to you.
Great, thank you. The next one, Clark, is there a MA function to build an LPN from existing stock?
I actually believe that is coming up in the 2023 R1 release, and I say coming up meaning it's on the roadmap. No guarantee, but I believe that is on the roadmap.
Okay, thank you. Is there a report that will automatically print on receipt for the LPNs automatically generated?
That I don't know. I'll follow that up and respond to your question.
Okay, thank you. That's all the questions that are in the question bank right now.
Perfect, thanks, Jason. So let's go back. So survey question. When our team created or designed the consultant roundtable, we wanted to provide you with value. We know how busy you are. You're taking an hour out of your time, and we want to give you the content that you're looking for. So a survey has been created of what topics would you like to see discussed in future consultant roundtables. That survey is going to appear at the end of the webinar, and you will also receive an email in terms an email with that same survey on it, just in case you've got to jump from this call right onto another call. You'll have that email reminder to be able to send that. So please fill that out. We really want your input. And even after you fill out that survey and you think of topics that you might be interested in us covering, even if that includes ISVs, other people within SAGE, please send them along. We're very open to hearing from you. So thank you for that in advance. What's new functionality? So I'm just being conscious of the time. We've got 5 minutes left. So the 2022 R4 release came out in November. Listed on the screen are some of the various functionalities that were added to that. Finance, there's a couple pieces. Distribution, the focus was more around mobile automation, highlighting stock count in blind mode. I know that's something we've been looking for a long time as well. Mobile automation. There's sound confirmation acts, so the successful performing a transaction receives one sound, the failing of another sound, failing of that action will receive a different sound. So some improved functionality there, as well as LPN fields and pick ticket transactions. There's been mobile automation detail added to, timesheet functionality for PJM. There's been graph QL API changes, enhancements for PJM and web scheduling enhancements as well. There's been changes to the ATB license management by session. Within the, there's a documents, I believe, a document section, handouts, handouts is the term. There's 3 handouts here associated that are available for you, one of which will be more detailed dive on 2022 R4. Remember, you can go to the what's new on the online help section and you'll see what was part of each and every release going backwards, of course. And this week, the Global Center of Excellence provided a new features session. I saw several of you in that session, which is a great overview of the new functionality, and they will provide that just after each release. So look for that on SageU in future as well. And we'll announce upcoming sessions too. Some of you may not have heard, but going forward, there's been changes to the release cadence, where in the currently there were 4 releases of X3 per year. It's changing to 2. Please don't be concerned that this is because it's to reduce the quantity content. It's more specifically to manage, ease the management of those releases with our customer. Simply deploying 4 releases a year to keep customer current as it respects to lifecycle policies is very difficult, where 2 releases is much easier to manage. Again, in the handout section, I provided a presentation on lifecycle policy and lifecycle Q&A. Should that be something you would like to read, grab it out of the handout section. We've got, again, an overview from Sage University. I'll highlight a couple things. So there's some knowledge bite sessions. What a knowledge bite is an hour-long session providing an overview and tips on certain topics. So you see next week we've got MRP MPS. In January, there's automatic journals, creating custom landing pages. The North America Center of Excellence team has knowledge bite sessions on some of the initiatives we've taken, the data migration tool, the soon to be released preventive maintenance module session will be in February, and Jason will do a deeper dive into the North America report pack and SCI pack in March. Quickly, we've got some additional expert classes. You can search by expert and you'll find these in the finance, distribution, manufacturing area, technical development, workflow workshops. If you've not done an expert class, I highly recommend it. I've actually taken many of them, everything on the list from the distribution manufacturing side, I've taken and got a lot out of. They're done really well. As well, there's Practice Factory for those of you not familiar with Practice Factory, it's almost like a case study. You actually are given a topic and have that ability to go through and present your solution. Upcoming, just we're at the very top of the hour. Our consultant roundtables occur on the third Friday of each month. The next consultant roundtable is January 20th, same time. And note when you are, look for your invitation from Channel Communications. You're able to sign up at the Sage Partner Hub, and you'll note when you're doing your sign up and you're doing at your webinar session field, if you hit that drop down, you can actually, while you're there, sign up for all future, so you don't have to worry about missing the sign up. I've got 2 emails during the call already saying, crap, I forgot to sign up. How do I do that? So here's a way that you're able to do that. So again, thank you. Thank you to all the participants on our second consultant roundtable. Please share these meetings. Meetings will be recorded and available from the Sage Partner Hub. If for some reason you can't access that, reach out and we can get you the recording if you miss it. If you sign up for it, you automatically get those details. If you forget, reach out and we can help you. Again, thank you very much.